Hello and welcome to the New Age Geek channel. If you're new here, build an inclusive space for people of all walks of life through the power of friendship and tabletop role-playing games. Tonight we have Investigation Check, our regular interview show where we talk to the geeky creators you love to hear about. Tonight we have fellow podcaster and interviewer, co-owner of the Mythos Media Productions, half of the Table Talk podcast, and all around geeky great one, Mariah. How you doing tonight, Mariah?
So good. How are you?
Good. Why don't you go ahead and tell everyone where they can find you at?
Hello, I'm Mariah. I am one half of the Table Talk podcast, and if you think that's long, then our production company that owns that is Mythos Media Productions. I'm so sorry. All the short handles were taken when we started doing this thing, so ours is extraordinarily long. One half Table Talk podcast. If you don't know who we are, we're back on weekly episodes on Wednesday, January 8th, but we're a sort of just like hanging out at your friends with a coffee shop, chatting about TTRPGs, sometimes interview show. We have a lot of very cool guests come on, and we don't play the game on Table Talk, but we talk about everything else involved. So other systems, parts of the game, writing games, running them, what we liked, what we don't, safety tools, just really dishing on our experience in the field and all the games we've played.
Awesome. And what is your handle so everyone can go ahead and find you?
Yes, you can find it on all the social medias. We are at TableTalkRPG. We managed to shorten that one.
Nice.
The Mythos Media one is just Mythos Media Productions. I'm so sorry, all the short ones were taken. I wanted it to be Mythos Media, but somebody has that one.
How dare they?
So take it up with them, please. And then DM me and I'll get it.
I am going to put your handle in the chat so everyone can follow it. If my stuff would work. There we go. Oh, Harley, I love you. Now's a bad time.
Is that a baby?
Is
that a fur baby?
This is my fur baby. Go away. She's destroyed a toy already.
Doggo. Yeah, my uncle has a dog that will only destroy stuffed animals and reduce them to skins. She just likes the skin.
So she has one
no
stuffed
stuffing.
Animal. I don't know if you can see it. The little lamb that's in her bed. She's had that for like a year. She just refuses to destroy it. She hugs it.
It's her baby. It's her baby.
But destroys everything else.
That's her baby.
All right, enough.
I think I see some stuffed animal corpse.
Yes.
Yeah, in the background.
Yeah. Anyway.
Some flesh.
It's everywhere.
Okay.
All right. Are you ready to get into tonight's episode?
I am.
All right. So I want you to take us back. Take us back to little Mariah. Where did you start? What is your first kind of introduction into the geeky world of modern day? I don't know. That question got out of me. Was it like a TV show? Was it a movie, a book, or what? What was your first experience?
For me, I mean, Little Mariah definitely did that thing where it's like I always really loved geeky stuff, and then you got to an age where it's not as cool to like geeky stuff. So it's kind of like liking Pink, and you're like, I don't like Pink. Or, I don't like geeky things like you do. You're just trying to be cool. Yeah. And then you get older, and you're like, I'm gonna watch cartoons and dress in head to toe bubblegum pink and not care what anyone thinks. But my intro to fantasy and just nerdy stuff was definitely books. That was always the enduring addiction for me, the one that never really went out. I played board games a lot. I still love classic board games, and we had a Nintendo 64, which I still have. And I have a Nintendo 64 and I have my PlayStation 5. That is my console and console gaming gap. I played handheld games, just consoles. I really went from the beginning of time to space. So that's been fun for me to catch up on all the games I've missed. But yeah, I did I had a Game Boy Color. I had the Nintendo DS's. I had other ones, other Game Boys that I'm forgetting about. But I always loved it, and I think I loved it more quietly until probably quarantine. So many of us is we're in the house and there's nothing to do. And I had recently started a job 3 months before quarantine, and I moved out to Austin. I knew no one. I'm I'm post-grad, we're gonna have an adventure. And it's no, we're gonna stay at home for 2 years is what we're gonna do. But a couple coworkers of mine had talked about starting a D&D game in the office. And I was well, that sounds really fun. I've heard of D&D, but I never knew anyone that played it, so I didn't have exposure to it. but like they got me hooked on like Critical Role and sort of like some like the McElroy podcasts and like Taz Balance and things like that. So that really started the obsession a little bit. And then we started a home game with kind of like a COVID like group of people who had all been isolating. So like we'll just be our kind of COVID bubble for some socialization so we don't go insane. And that game was actually how I met Holiday, who's my co-host. She joined us like a few months in, and that ran for a bit, and then lots of life stuff happened. We our DM ended up moving to Houston, and like there was a bit where I was driving, or a while actually, where I was driving back and forth from Austin to Houston to play D&D. At one point, every other
ride is that?
3 to 4, depending on the path you take and how fast you drive.
Christ.
Yeah.
That's dedication.
So, yes, truly. Like, every other weekend was insane. I don't recommend doing that, especially if you're, like, chronically ill or have fatigue issues, because I would be... I was driving to play D&D, and then I was dead on the weekends when I was not doing that. God forbid if I had a work trip or some other event or something else that I had to do. And then so after we kind of moved away from that campaign, and Ollie started running Strixhaven, I was like, what if we did once a month? I'm like, once a month, because half of our party was out in Austin and half was in Houston. So I was like, we can do a weekend a month. So we just started dedicating like a weekend to D&D. Okay. And we still do that now. Now we all live in various parts of Houston. Ollie and I are like 20 minutes away from each other, which is incredible.
Nice.
But the others are a little further because Houston is an hour away from itself. It's so sprawling. Like, and yeah, so we still do our like for sure like D&D like TTRPG weekend month. Nice. I think going into this year we're gonna start running like the Strixhaven game and then alternating between like my VTM game and like some games the other girls want to run as well. Nice. So that'll be really fun. And like somewhere in all of that, like I guess it's been a year and a half ago, probably now it'll be 2 years this summer, because it was right before Gen Con that we started the podcast. Like Ollie and I had been like joking, done that like thing you do. Well, your friends were like, we should have a podcast. And then we were like, well, what if we did do it? Like, what would it be about? And I'm like, well, I guess it would be about TTRPGs, because that's what we spend the most of our time doing, and it's something we've like amassed a lot of knowledge about in a relatively short time. I mean, compared to, we have a few years in now, but like compared to people who've been playing since like AD&D days, right? Like we were newer on the scene. So we just none of us have the ability to be chill about anything. So it's like we're hyper fixating, we're buying all the books and the cards and and just hissing from the corner with like 8 sets of dice that we don't need. So yeah, we started the podcast, and in like months that start with J. My brain is fried today, apologies. And like July of like year before last, ended up going to PAX that December, very much on a whim of just like, should we go? Would it be cute? It was great. Yeah. We met you. We met so many awesome people. And it really kind of took off from there of like that. At that point, like the friends we made and the people we met, we really started feeling like we were part of the community. Mm-hmm. And that's only grown. Like we had a similar thing on Threads, where like we started on Threads at a good time, so we kind of caught that wave. And yeah, it's just kind of continued evolution of like, last year was kind of a slow year and more of a year of just like assessing, and like there was a lot of life stuff that had to be dealt with. I moved again. I better not. If I move one more time in the next like before like 5 years passes, someone in my family is gonna murder me stunt in the night. I'm sure they will, because I've moved too much in the last few years. But yeah, there was a lot going on, and so I think this year we're very excited to try to work on some new projects and see what we can get done. Okay. And get to some cons again.
Well, I'm gonna bring you back, because we went through your whole story there. I want to bring you back to the beginning. I want to talk about this, like your first kind of foray into just geekdom. You said you used to read books. What kind of books were you reading? What kind of adventures were you wanting to consume at that time?
So I mean, what books was I reading? Probably the first, like, I don't know if Little House on the, like, when I was little, if like Little House on the Prairie counts as like quasi adventure.
I
It
don't know.
kind of
I don't know if it's
does.
geek though. But
It's not geeky, right? Like Lord of the Rings was probably the first like purely geeky thing. That and like Harry Potter.
okay.
I was very into like Hunger Games
Mhm.
and Twilight, like all early aughts middle school girls. Where when the books, my thing was like the books came out. By the time the movies came out, I was over it a little bit, but it's like the first. I guess define geeky. Like I watched Doctor Who. I love like BBC. I still am obsessed with like BBC Sherlock and things like that.
Mhm.
I got into anime more in like during quarantine.
Okay.
I guess it depends on how you define nerdy or
We
geeky.
can divide it any way you like. This is your origin story. You tell me.
That's true. That's
you tell me
true.
what you defined it as geeky.
This might be a hard pull, but it just occurred to me, and
What
like
is
the
it?
other 5 people that did that. The Warrior Cats books.
Okay. I don't know what this
Is that
is, so
anything?
please tell me what this
It's
is.
okay.
No, you're gonna go into an in-depth discussion about warrior
I was
cats
like,
right now.
I'm gonna say a thing, and then it's either gonna be like, oh my god, yeah, or I'm gonna have to then explain what I mean.
This is a warrior cats podcast now. I need to know about this.
Jesus Christ. So there is like, from what I remember, because it's been a minute. So if you were like a current day Warrior Cat stan, don't come for me. I haven't read these books since I was a child. But like I was obsessed with animals, and I again like to read. I would like if there's a series that had a bunch of books, I was like, let me in. I'm chain chopping through them. So the Warrior Cats were effectively like, it's this. I suppose it's fantasy.
Warrior cats.
It's not really it's not really cozy. Like some cats, there was definitely like cat on cat warfare, and they died some like there was really sad moments in
So
the war.
this is the Game of Thrones with cats.
Yeah, very much that. Yeah, where it's like there were different like tribes. They're really kind of like Avatar-esque tribes, but cats. And like there used to be like quizzes about like what cat did you want to be and what does that say about you? Like what cat clan were you from? Yeah, and all the cats had like just very fun and like quasi ridiculous names like Dark Claw and Yellow Stripe and shit like that.
Hard, just hard.
Yeah, like when you're like, this is the hardest shit that's ever been. This is pure cinema and like violence.
I'm fucking Lone Claw, baby.
Truly, yeah. No, there was a character like that. I remember like one of the really beloved like medicine cats dying as like their home burned down, and I was like, why am I being traumatized by this cat right now? But yeah, Warrior Cats. I think there might be a Warrior Cats TTRPG.
You're full of shit. No way.
If I'll Google it. I'll Google it. Hang on. Apologies for my lighting if it changes, because the Roll20 screen is my filler light. But for the Warrior Cats TTRPG, I will mess up my lighting for a second. Is it Warrior Cats? Don't fucking embarrass me right now.
God, I swear to God, if this is a thing.
The Warriors Adventure Game is a pen and paper role-playing game taking place in the Warriors campaign setting. Players can create their own warrior cat using the character creation rules and have their progress through different adventures. The game was created by Stan with an exclamation point. It is actually existed from 2010, and it won an Emmy Award for Best Free Product. So it does exist.
I know one of the next shows we're having on this fucking channel.
You can be a warrior. You too can be a warrior cat. I know nothing about it. I've never looked at it, but it'll probably be fun. Who doesn't want to be a cat?
Oh God, I love it. I love it so much. I love the things I get to find out on this fucking show.
Truly. It's like, I feel like TTRPGs are becoming like, it's following like Rule 34.
Oh yeah.
Things where it's like, if you can think of it, somewhere, some crevice of the internet has that nasty work you crave. You just have to find it.
Yeah. Not as easy as Rule 34 because we can't use the same names.
True.
Sons of bitches. They got us on porn.
Yep. Well, even this is like the Warriors adventure game, and then they just have like the classic, like the silhouette of the cat, and so it's like you have to know. You're like, that's the cat.
It's fucking warrior
I've been
cats. I know
seeking.
it. Oh god, I love it. I love it so much. All right. So you said you got into TTRPGs, and we've kind of already gone through this.
Sorry, yeah, I did give you like my whole life
No, you're
story.
good. You're good.
My brain was like, that's what I'm supposed to do, and so I just did it.
We're powering through. You're like hour and a half. Fuck that. We're going 45 minutes.
It's also that like I think I knew it would probably derail us or go the search for warrior cats. So I was
Well,
like,
that's
if
I
get
want.
all of that out,
that's what this show's all about. The derailing. We
it's like if
follow
I get
those
it
rails.
out at the jump, then I'm fine. I don't have to worry about.
No,
not
I'm fucking
anything.
bringing you back for warrior cats. God damn it.
Please
yeah,
do.
our interview show is very much just random fucking conversations. At some point,
Us too.
now I know
Yeah.
all about warrior cats, and I never would have known that without
Yeah,
you.
we fully had a table talk episode where I am at fault, and as I am often at fault for just derailing the conversation straight into hell. And somehow it turned into just us talking about our fears
Okay.
for like an hour, and we had to send that to Kay, our editor, and be like, I'm so sorry. I don't know what this is. Please try your best.
Wait, so what are your fears?
So mine are, so I'm an arachnophobe for sure.
Okay.
Spiders are bad for me. When I first moved into my house, there's many spiders, more spiders than anyone is comfortable with lived in my garage, as they do, and my house. That was bad. I'm arachnophobic because when I was like very little, I had repressed this memory, and then one day I was just wondering why am I afraid of spiders and the webs, because I'm also afraid of the webs. When I was little, I loved to slide. I was a girl that loved to slide, as so many young girls do.
Who doesn't
and
love
we
to
had just love to go fast. We had a little like climby playhouse thing in our backyard, and so I like ran excitedly over to that, and with the trust and serenity that can only be found in childhood, went straight, like bailed over the side, went straight for that slide, but within the slide lived like its body was the size of a quarter. Thick. With legs too big.
Yeah.
Just right there. The spider also loved to slide, and so I fully
Who doesn't?
straight to the forehead, like third eye, like spider right on the third eye. And then I screamed like someone was murdering me, and my mother ran out, and my dad got in trouble for letting me get face slapped by a spider.
It's always our fault. It's always the dad's fault.
Because he was supposed to be out there monitoring me.
Right.
And I scurried away from him. But he's 6'1".
Come on, Dad.
So he had reach. He was just like, no, it'll be fine. But it wasn't fine.
You should have known. You should have known.
What kind of spider was it? Spiders.
What kind of spider was it?
It might have been, I think it was probably like an orb weaver, or like we tend to call them like banana spiders in the South. The ones that have like the webs that bounce back a little bit.
Yeah.
Which you don't want.
No, you don't want a stretchy web.
You don't want the web that really holds you close. Right. Because the webs that just touch you are bad enough. Right. The webs that can like catch a bird.
Yeah. Bad call.
No.
Not about that life.
That's not for me, dog.
It's gonna be no for me, dog.
I don't like it. But I was like, yeah, I would see a lot of those like fishing, and I'm like, cool, we're never going fishing. I'm so sorry to kill that dream for you. Because not today.
Yeah, I used to be arachnophobic. I've kind of gotten over it now, but ever since moving to Tennessee, there's a ton of huntsman spiders.
I see those are that's too much spider. That's more spider than you need.
Those motherfuckers run at you.
I don't like that.
They don't get webs. They're like, no, I want the smoke, and they fucking book at you like it's cool.
I thought those only lived in Australia.
No,
those are here.
Huntsmans are everywhere. It's just different.
I don't want them.
Like the super big ones are in Australia.
Okay, how big?
I think they're about that big in Tennessee.
Okay,
manageable.
Not great.
Manageable.
Not good.
I can
not
punch
dinner
them to
plate
death.
sized. Yeah, stompable.
Right.
Like I don't know. I'm less like, for me, I love, like, we love that spiders eat bugs. Like, I respect that they are part of the ecosystem. Where I'm like, I don't want to touch you, and I don't want them to touch me.
Right. We
So
can
I'm
have
like,
a
hey,
mutual
if you,
respect.
yeah, if you want to live above 6 feet
Yeah.
in my living space, I'll pretend that you're not there. I will live in blissful ignorance.
Don't
One
ask,
time,
don't tell.
basically. Now, if you're gonna be on my kitchen counter, now we have a problem.
Right. But
Because
now
you
the
can't be by
smoke.
the coffee
Now
maker.
the smoke.
But yeah, like fully when I was in college, I had a spider. I had like last apartment I lived in had very, very tall ceilings for some reason. And like a spider descended from a very long web, a concerningly long web. Like how much silk you got in there, bud, because these ceilings were quite high. Not a big spider, but any amount of spider is too much to be doing that.
That's fair.
Like so I was just watching TV and I just saw spider body dangling and I was like, no. I matrixed under the spider, which was like the most athletic thing I'd done in 6 months. I grabbed my keys, I grabbed my phone and my wallet. I went to my friend's house. I stayed gone for several hours. And then I came home and I'm like, I know when I open this door, there's not going to be a spider dangling over my couch. And we're going to move on with our day and we're going to pretend that we're going to sweep that under the rug like any good Southern family would do. And then I went in and there wasn't a spider there. And I'm like, well,
at least
then
we have
that's
an understanding.
yeah, that's fine. We can move past this.
This entire summer, there was a spider outside, like my house. I have like this covered porch outside in the backyard. And the entire summer, they were there in the corner, vibing, doing their thing. I'd go out and smoke a cigar. Like, what up, dog?
They're where you expect them to be.
We had I used to go out and have a conversation with her. Beautiful relationship.
Yeah, you're like, hey, bud.
Hey.
Like, I've watched Charlotte's Web.
Hey.
I respect your life.
Yeah, right. Hey, how you doing? How's your mother? Or the full
be where I expect you to be.
Had a whole Mark Wahlberg sketch with him. How's your mother?
Great.
All right, let's get back on track here because we've just gone off the rails, which is the best thing ever.
Yep.
When you're telling, so you guys don't do a lot of storytelling with D&D campaigns. So I want to know, when you are either playing or DMing, do you play or DM? Like, where are you at?
Both. Bit of both now.
Okay.
I play more than I DM, but I'm getting definitely into DMing. I've had like a VTM campaign. It's loosely Fall of London, but it's very much my own like gay horror girly pop time version of Fall of London, where I have just like all these NPCs that are way too powerful, and I'm like, oh, this is why the VTM rules don't want you to play elders, and I have like oops all elders, and I let my first time players be like old vampires, so like they're not elders, but they're like the middle children. So it's just I've quickly gotten out of my depth, but that's okay because we're all new to it. So I was like, yeah, roll this. I just tell them something to roll, and then I'll roll against them with what feels right, and it's fine because it's a home game. So yeah, I do a bit of both. That's just like with scheduling, it's harder. The more games you have, it's harder to schedule them regularly.
Okay. So when you are a player in a game, what kind of like what goes into your character creation? What are you bringing in stuff of yourself? Is it like you intentionally try to like not put in aspects of yourself because you want to explore different things? What's kind of your level there for that?
It's a bit of both for me. And I think it always changes. And like it's the same rule as like when I'm writing characters. I think it's good. I do a lot of putting in parts of myself, or like having characters go through very extreme versions of like things that I've also dealt with as kind of a coping mechanism or a way to process that, or a way to just see it from the outside. I don't think you ever want to like make yourself or like make another person like your high school bully Betty, and like you don't want to write, no one wants to like, you don't want to clone a person and put them into like a piece of fiction because that doesn't work. But I do like to take like an aspect or two of someone, or even it's a stranger, like someone you saw just like said some crazy ass one-liner while they were drunk, and like that can be enough to like get a spark of humanity in a character so they feel real and grounded. And then you take it and you dial it up to 11 and you make the stakes much higher and the proportions change where it's not recognizable to the original source. So like my current Strixhaven character, which is Ollie's campaign, she definitely has like parts of me in her for sure. Especially like
Yeah.
in her inner monologue and stuff of like she's several years farther back in therapy than I am, but it's like fun to kind of play around with and just like identity things and dealing with like self-worth and stuff like that is always really fun
Yeah.
to play. Like when I'm writing novels or I'm like running like my VTM campaign, so I have a bigger cast of characters, then it kind of depends. Like the NPCs or the characters that I'm closest to usually also have something of me, whether it's an existing like trait of mine or it's a like an aspect that I wish I had, you know, like a lack of social anxiety or just like being extremely confident all the time or very self-assured and like never doubting yourself. Like, and then again, you dial it up to 11, right? So like maybe like you're all of like everyone in I say like with our VTM campaign, like they're all great characters. There are no heroes there. You're all monsters. So like everyone has their side, but depending on the lens you're looking in, the heroes and the villains are different. But like everyone is very assured that they are right.
Right.
And they are not questioning that. They're like, no, I am for sure correct. And like I doubt myself a lot. So it's like that's kind of fun to play with.
Yeah.
Right? And it's like so it usually orients, especially like the more time I have to spend with a character, the more grounded I want them to feel. Whereas with characters like that don't appear as much, I don't do that for everything. Right. Excuse me.
So, for when you are DMing and you're telling this longer form story, that is the more interactive as opposed to the books you write.
Yes.
What goes into your planning for that then?
For me, it always comes back to the characters and like knowing and the connections with like I like to do a lot of like written out of session role play. With like all of my players don't love to do that. Like sometimes that written roleplay just looks like a bulleted list of like factoids and questions, and sometimes it is fully written out scenes and like or any mix of those is good. But I really want to like get in my player's head and know what makes their character tick and what their character wants. And like the more information and just weird, uncanny 3 a.m. thoughts and Pinterest images stuff you can send me, the better. Because I'm not in that character's skin, so I don't understand their motivations as well as their player does. But I want to get as close as I can to that. And then on my end, with my characters, I and the rest of the world that I'm sort of putting up against them, I just try to make sure that like again everyone's a human, everyone has flaws that people have that they probably don't see, they have their own motivations, and then like the world is constantly evolving, right? So like no decision happens in a vacuum. So like a lot of what I do when I'm running the game is like I have a sheet open, and when something happens, if you lie to the prince, the seneschal, the Prince of London, I'm going to write down that you did that. If you, whatever just weird things happen where I'm like, that might be interesting to pull on later, I write it down because everyone else is still doing stuff, even if they're not appearing on screen.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of those, like, fun reveal moments that you, like, want to have as a DM and as a storyteller come from being very aware of what all of your other NPCs are doing and how they're going to react to and feel about what happens sort of on screen at the table.
So how do you connect, then how is your storytelling different when you are writing like a solo personal book story, you know, like something you're controlling everything on, as opposed to improv like RP tabletop stories?
But with writing, because like I'm the one controlling it, I'm the kind of proverbial hand of God, however you feel, like mixed feelings about that metaphor, but like I have a stronger idea about where I want the story to go and where I want how I want things to end. There's still things in the middle that will surprise me and will evolve, and the ending may change, but that all lives in my head, and I'm much more in control of those characters. Whereas when I run TTRPGs, it's really like I I've prepared people and places and situations that you can interact with, and I have scenes in mind that I'll run you through. I have scenes in mind for like a couple sessions down, and like maybe an idea or two for like way down the line. But all of that is really up in the air. And I truly, like, at the end of a session, I will take, like, we record our sessions, which I highly recommend doing because it's, you can find so many little things that you missed, or maybe like you didn't have time to take a note because you were like role playing with somebody, and then the scene moved on and you missed something. So like being able to go back and listen to that is so helpful. But like when it's collaborative storytelling and other people are helping you drive that narrative, for me, like, it is being very open and holding everything with an open hand. Where, like, yes, I have my NPCs that are, like, my favorite, that I, you know, my little babies that I love, but I'm not too tied up in any one outcome with them. Like, it's being there for the process and being open to wherever your players want to go with it. And I, truly will just be like, okay, intercession, this is the information we have that we did not have last time. This is how that affects persons A through F's plans and machinations.
Yeah.
And then these are the next set of scenes that they are going to run into as a result of what happened last time. And I think that keeps me from like burning myself out trying to plan too much, or like trying to be, you know, an oracle and like guess what my players are going to do. Because like sometimes you can, but a lot of times you can't, especially with, depending on who you play with, it's often pretty unexpected, which is one of the great things about it.
Right.
And it, like, I still feel like I'm at the table and getting to contribute and like making decisions in real time as well, because I didn't know exactly how scenes would play out or how everyone would react. And so I'm very much still playing off my players and not just like parroting out a prescripted story that I've already come up with. Whereas like when I'm writing, it is very much that, and then it's like, oh, the important thing and the interesting thing is when do you introduce information and how do you do that and how do you make that, those mini reveals add up to the big one.
Yeah. So do you enjoy when you are telling a story, do you feel like you get more enjoyment out of writing it yourself or the collaborative storytelling of a book, a tabletop game?
Ooh, that's a good question. Right now, that's hard. If I was looking at it for like writing versus being a player, I think I probably enjoy playing more because of the level of unexpectedness.
Yeah.
And I think also this is some of like, I'm still a newer DM, and so there's still a certain amount of like imposter syndrome and anxiety and overwhelm that comes with like taking that mantle.
Right.
And like, especially like I like telling darker stories and playing with dark themes. So you never sorry, I may also be getting something. You never like it is harder to sometimes like we of course we do lines and veils. Right. We have session zeros, we do all of that. So you know what's like up for grabs and what's in play. But there are also always moments of like if you're doing an interrogation scene, like I've done those in written out of session role play, and it went really well, but we all had space to sort of react to that. And so you could have more horrific things happen because we have space and we have time to plan how you react. Whereas like if you're at a table and it's a very graphic interrogation scene, it is sometimes harder to one, assess how you're feeling, and if like you're comfortable with it as the DM, if all your players are comfortable with it, and like people can like yellow card, red card, whatever, but sometimes in the moment you don't know if you're really uncomfortable until you unpack something. You're like, wait, that was kind of fucked up, and I have weird feelings about it. Yeah. And it's I feel safer exploring like very dark things in writing because that is my background. I have more experience there. It's more, I have more control there. And so it's just where I feel a bit more authority. So right now, like DMing versus writing, I probably prefer writing. Okay. But I don't know if that's because I'm just a newer DM and I'm still finding my feet a little bit. or if that's like my permanent opinion.
Yeah, that's fine. I mean,
if that makes sense.
I feel like that's one of those things that could just change like week to week almost.
True. Yeah.
So when you are getting ready to create some sort of new content, what goes into that for you? Is there like you got whiteboards up and you're like prepping things out, or are you like zenning out and having a meditation session? What goes into your creative process?
Incoherent screaming.
Whatever works.
Sometimes that. Like, it's a little different every time, like everything is. I think sometimes it is very helpful just like if I need a visual for something, like I'll just scroll on Pinterest and find things, but it usually starts with having a clearer idea for someone, and someone's like, I'll write out little snippets in their voice to just kind of get in their head and get more comfortable with them. If it's like a TTRPG character, then it's usually thinking about like what build I want to play and then how to make that interesting. And how to kind of like I think we all people have been in the TTRPG space for a minute have like a little Rolodex of like stories that we would like to tell, or stories that, like we've consumed in books or movies or other media that like we would like to experience with our own spin. And so sometimes I'm reaching into that and seeing if one of those fits, or if I can take like pieces of those. I'm unfortunately like with DMing and with like writing, I'm someone where like certain bigger world building things have to be in place. So like names are very important to me. I can't write and just sub in like character X. I have to know their name to like write about them. So like I catch hell with names every day of my life. They haunt me. And like same with certain things about the world. So if there are important families or important houses, like I have to know what the structure is to like build out the sandbox that I'm playing in, to feel, because the world has to feel real, or I get inside my head and I don't write anything. So I'm always like asking my DMs and stuff with TTRPGs. I'm like, what do you have planned for the world? Like, where is it? Like, if it's in Faerun or something, where like our friend Alyssa is about to start writing a campaign that is like set in Faerun. So I'm like, okay, that's interesting. Now I kind of like know what I'm playing in. I know the cities that we have, and I can go off of that.
Yeah.
Or if it's like a completely homebrew world, then like, can you tell me a little bit about the world and like where we're gonna be at, and like, is it like Icewind Dale, or is it the Feywild? Because those were two very different vibes,
right?
And you would bring very different characters to those spaces.
So, what is like the number one thing then for you when you are looking to make something new? Is it like you have to have like a core idea, or is it like you have this small idea that you then build upon, or like where does that process start? Do you start at the end, or do you start at the beginning? Or does that make sense, that analogy?
It does, okay. Yeah. Core idea is, I think, the big driver for me, because everything comes from that. Like if you and like what you want the story to do.
Okay.
Like when someone closes the book, they want to be like, oh, I feel like I've learned about critiquing religion and like the indoctrination that comes with it, or like with like a lot of kind of classic fairy tales and stuff, like there is some kind of like epitaph or like lesson that you're meant to learn through there. And so like I want something like that, like with my core idea, because then it gives you like a central point to weave from almost. Okay. So it's like I can make sure. So like with the book I'm reading, I'm currently trying to like plot out like how I want the religion, like religion is going to be a pretty big part of it, and like a part of the society. So it's like planning out what that religion is, what it actually is, versus what people interpret it. How do group X of people versus group Y of people interpret it, and the cultural stuff that is like come from them. So, because in that of like my character comes into conflict with that faith, and like things manifest in a way that sort of go against it, but are also like in a profity way, or in a like our religion is wrong way, like who knows. And so it's then I have that idea, and so it's like, okay, I need the religious system, and then that becomes my anchor point that I weave out from.
Okay.
And like the longer the story goes, I think like that anchor point may change
Right.
as like the characters evolve, and I think also just one of those for a book or for like a big cast of characters, like you kind of always have to have like your main kind of point of view characters. Even with TTRPGs, I feel like that's also true, where it's like you have your main antagonist, or it's like their group, and you have like different kind of key, like your heftier NPCs, you know, that are
Right.
really well built out, that almost serve like point of view characters for the people experiencing the story. And like each of them can kind of serve as those like weave points that then help you build out the world and connect everything to go from there, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I get that. So when you are writing a story, do you start with one character and kind of like begin to tell more points of view as they become necessary, or do you try and stick to just your main cast, we'll say?
I don't really have a clear answer to that, because it depends on the story. I think for me, whether like you have, this is just my personal opinion, someone who's like read a lot of books, especially a lot of fantasy books, of like with varying amounts of points of view, I think like you should try to keep books from like getting way too long or like way too just wordy and exorbitant. You should try to limit yourself as much as you can. And it's like if there are scenes that you need the reader to see that cannot be told by your first like main character that you have, then you have another POV character. So like Game of Thrones, right, is a good example of this, because like there's several, I haven't read the books, but I've read like a little bit, you know, so like there's POV characters in Winterfell. There's POV characters in King's Landing. There's POV characters in, you know,
The
like
Wall, yeah.
Danny, and in, you know, in these different areas where it's like they're all going to creep closer, but you need to know what's going on in all these areas. And so, and none of the other characters that you already have could possibly give you that information. So we add in another POV character, and then, but they have to also be somebody that can give you enough information that they justify having a point of view for the entirety of the book.
Okay.
With books specifically.
Yeah.
Because there's something to like play with of like unreliable narrators, and like your narrator doesn't have to know everything, and the reader doesn't have to know everything. But you also don't want it to be like a gotcha where it's like, I had this thing hidden in the closet the whole time. Like, you don't want to do that. Like, that's not fun. Like, you can have, it's fun to like have that happen to the character. Right. But you don't want that to happen to the readers. That just feels cheap. Like, you want the readers to be like, I know something you don't know, or like, please don't do that. You're going to get got. You know, because they've read and they know that there's like a planning war coming. They're like, don't go to that pass. They're going to kill you, girl. Like, you want to have those moments. And so, but I think like it's easy as you're refining a work, like when you're just drafting something, and I'm preaching to the choir on this, you're telling yourself the story first. So like however many POVs you think you need to get that story on paper, do it. Yeah. But then like as you're refining it, thinking about like what each POV adds, and like is that like critical to the lifeblood narrative of your story? And if it's not, cut it. Kill your darlings. Okay.
All right, I'm going to switch things up a little bit here because I want to talk to you about Table Talk. Okay?
Yes.
I want to know, like, so you and Allie started this channel to kind of like talk about your passions as far as the TTRPG community. Mm-hmm. What kind of brings you joy out of that medium of interviews?
Oh my goodness. It's so fun. Like, I love, I mean, like, you've met me in person. And so it's like, I love picking people's brains and just like hearing about, especially when they have interesting projects that they're doing. It's like, how did you get into that? Like, how do you approach your back end, even like very niche things, like what's your lighting setup? Or like, how did you figure out your streaming format? Like, and then more interesting things as well. Like, yeah, how do you craft your stories? How did you make up your cast? How did you decide who's going to come in where and when? Like, and as we got more and more into the community, it was just a wealth of that. And like, it's so interesting and fun because like, yeah, you can read like guides for things and like official source books and stuff, but like it's not the same as talking to people who have done it, especially people who have done it for longer than you, or people who have like completely different perspectives than you because they belong to a minority group you don't belong to, or just have very different life experiences that have informed the way they approach the hobby and storytelling in general. So it's been so fun and so helpful to like carve out this little niche for ourselves where it's just like we're all sitting in like a knowledge stew and just adding more people in, and it's so yeah, it's just so interesting and fun because we'll go into an episode, like a guest episode, with an idea, like we'll have something we generally want to talk about, but it always devolves into just like, sometimes it fully devolves into just like random advice giving, like we've had, or just like quasi therapy episodes, like the SJ episode, which was super fun.
Yeah.
Like it's just so interesting to see other people's perspectives.
Yeah.
Especially like we've had some people, like we had like Sarah from Sarah's Coffee come on, and like they were someone that like I followed them since early quarantine, since like their early days. And so like I saw them on our schedule and I messaged Ollie and I was like, sorry, what? And it was so cool because we just like geeked out about horror and like talked about like how to handle that responsibly in a game, and they had just such an interesting perspective and like niche knowledge from their experience as a DM and a player that was very helpful for both Ollie and I. It's like that's my favorite thing, is just being able to pick people's brains, and I think that keeps us coming back to it, and it kind of keeps the podcast evergreen and fresh a bit, because like we do a fair amount of episodes that are just Ollie and I, and those are also fun. But if it was just Ollie and I talking to each other, only that, I think we would run short of ideas eventually.
Do you think you get more joy from a guest episode or just a one-on-one with Allie?
Ooh.
I keep calling her Allie. Is it Allie or Ollie?
So I call her Ollie because her name is Alejandra.
Right.
She'll go by either, and so I think like when she usually will like introduce herself to like non-Latin people as Allie, because that's what she's gone to like most of her life. Our previous DM our previous DM introduced her to me as Alejandra, so Ale. So I just call her Ale.
I'll do my best to fix that.
Yeah, so. She's fine. She's genuinely fine with either. Like we've gone to restaurants and she's been like, this many for Allie, and then like they've called and like I haven't heard her say that, and the hostess calls like Allie, and I'm like, who the fuck is Allie? And she's like, no, that's me. Okay. Like, oh, okay. Yeah, like her mom calls her that. It's not a big deal.
Okay.
It's more just like she was introduced to me with a little bit of Latin flavor put on her name, so that is how my brain categorized her.
Okay.
And so it feels wrong. It's like, it would be like someone calling me, like, my first name is Caitlin. Okay. So it'd be like someone calling me Caitlin, right? It feels weird to do it. I mean, once you've cemented it, like, I can't go back.
This is who I am now.
Yep.
Okay, back to my question. So do you prefer, like, the one-on-one conversations, or do you like the dynamics of adding in a third? You know what I mean?
Yes. I know the way that you meant it. That is not all a dynamic, but people hear what they want to hear, baby. You said that, I was like, for sure. Ooh, I like them both. I mean, we've been really fortunate with our guests, as like the vast majority of our guests that we've been on have been incredible, and like it's a lively, fun discussion. Like there are always a couple episodes like it's slower, just someone is like not as talkative or whatever. Like it's a little bit more like laborious to do the episode, which like is nothing personal. It's just how it goes. I'm gonna avoid answering your question straight by doing the very PR thing and presenting the benefits of both.
Fair.
So like obviously, because I refuse to pick. Like I work in marketing, baby. This is what I do. Like guest episodes, like I said, are great because we get to have a new like fresh perspective, and it usually introduces like new conversations that like I don't think Ollie and I would have gotten into on our own. So that's been awesome.
Yeah.
But then there is like such a comfort and a familiarity and an ease with the episodes that are just Ollie and I, because like we know exactly how that's gonna feel, right?
Yeah.
There's always a little bit of like when you go into, at least for me, like Ollie's not really as anxious as I am, but like when you go into a guest episode, less so now, but definitely when we were young, like when we were younger, when the show was
Back
younger.
in my day.
Yeah, God, like the show is its own entity, which it kind of feels like it is to some degree. When we were newer to the process of like you don't know how the guest episode is gonna feel, and so
Right.
it's almost like going in for a job interview, right? If you're like to be like on and masking and doing a thing where it's like I can kind of show up with Ollie like if I'm low energy or whatever, and it's fine.
Yeah.
And like now, the longer I've done this, the more I'm fine with just arriving how I am. I almost made another little slippy and I caught myself. Marketing, baby. But yep. God damn.
I had monster
This is
fucking.
live.
I had monster fucking with Ollie, and now I've got threesomes with you. What is happening?
Hey, it's just the vibe. I'm not mad at it.
I'm not mad at it
I'm
either.
not-
I'm
I'm not mad at it on any level.
I had this conversation with her. I'm like, I can't make these jokes because I am
No, you
who
can.
I am, and I have to be careful.
Oh yeah.
People will
I
get
probably-
upset with me.
Hopefully the people in my life who would get upset with me stop watching this shit a long time ago.
I don't have those people in my life because everyone knows who I am, but our viewers.
Yeah. I mean, hey. We were talking about fucking Dragon Con when this show started too, and you're like, no, it's a party stream. I'm like, I'm looking that up. And I'm like, she has LSU colors, and they called her like a social event. And I'm like, people are throwing ass at Dragon Con, and I
Yeah.
support it.
We're getting white
We gotta
girl
try to
wasted.
get out there. Me diverting the topic into hell. Into the lust circle of hell specifically, I guess. What was the fucking question? Were we still on whether like Ollie and I think maybe that's what my brain did. Like I didn't want to pick solo episodes with Ollie or guest episodes. So then yeah, I saw an opportunity and I was like, we must capitalize.
ADHD.
Hey.
So yeah, you there's benefits to each one. Is I think
There's
what
good
you're
things to
what you
both.
get.
Yeah. For sure.
So let me ask this then: is there a guest that you haven't had on yet that you're really excited to work with or potentially work with?
Oh my goodness. I mean, there's so many like dream guests,
Of course.
right?
Realistic dream guest, like obviously Matt Mercer. The chances are very low of that
Very
happening.
low.
But let's.
And we had Luis Carrazzo come on, which was crazy.
Amazing fucking guest.
We just met him, and he's like, yeah, no, I know who you are. And both on here were like, what do you mean you know who we are? And he's just like, he's the nicest.
Yeah.
He just came on. Yeah, we hung out. I was like, crazy. Oh my goodness. I'm gonna botch this question as I pull up our fucking calendar. I know we have Ollie and I currently play a game with Janelle Boss Jellybean.
Oh yeah, I love Janelle. I had her
And,
on last
like,
week.
Yeah, she's fantastic.
Yeah.
We play like in her Fate Arc Eclipse game, which is very, very fun. It's ran over into like the new year because of scheduling, but like we're about to have our like season 1 finale pretty
Nice.
soon. I'm very excited and scared to like what she's gonna throw at us for all of our tomfoolery throughout the season. But we're gonna have Janelle and Aetherius has come on before.
Ooh, nice.
But we're gonna have Aetherius back with Janelle or something. I'm very excited about that one.
That's awesome.
As far as we don't have a ton on the books right now, but we need to work on that.
Mm-hmm. Is there a guest that you're like itching to get on?
You want to come on?
Oh, I'm a listen.
Okay.
Listen, I put out on the first date, just so that's perfectly clear. I am just easy.
You would be a fun guest. I would love to have you on.
I would love to be on.
Hell yeah.
But like, I'm asking like the big. Let's talk about some of the big people, right?
I mean, so like
big people in
like
the space.
Abria would be
Abria.
crazy, right?
What kind of conversation would you want to have with Abria?
Ooh. So I know it's for Ollie, and it's true for Ollie, and it's also true for me. Abria's style of DMing like really helped both of us see that this was something that we could do, because I think like Abria's a wonderful performer, but it's like she doesn't do the Matt Mercer like human sound machine type of stuff. And even like Brennan Lee Mulligan it'd be out here, and I'm like, all right, that shouldn't come from a person, but for sure. But like looking at how Abria ran it, and it still was like such an immersive, dynamic story, that I know like opened Ollie up to like, no, I can fucking do this. I can run games. And for me specifically, like especially after watching Abria's Burrow's End season, which I give you spoilers, cover your ears and say la 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 if you haven't seen Burrow's End. Have you not seen Burrow's End? What do you mean you can't?
I am the worst.
You can't have not seen it. Okay, but that was I was gonna reference something. Okay, then I'll be generic. So you can't cover your ears and say la la la, but everyone else can. Well, actually, you don't have to, because I'm not going to be specific. The way she did horror in that campaign, was so good, and like the way she handled, I mean, like body horror and gore and things like that was like so surprising and interesting, and it's like it was not something that I expected from her initially, but it was so good because like I had seen her like her kind of Feywild campaign, which was fantastic, and then I've seen the first season of Misfits and Magic. I still need to watch like the Christmas special and the second one. I just haven't gotten around to it. But like Burroughs Inn had a very different feel, where it was like all of these very cute little, oh, people are gonna kill me, I can't remember what they were. They're not like Phoenix. Little like badger, like little long boys.
Pangolins? Ferrets?
No, not ferrets, but ferret adjacent.
Oh fuck, I know what they're called. Spooks?
You're on it, yeah. Burrows and
no, that's not a fucking spoodle. What is a spoodle?
Stoats.
Stoats, that's it.
They're stoats. Now we're calling them spoodles. I was gonna do the same thing where I was like, I know it starts with an S, and I'm just gonna say dumb shit, and I'm never gonna land on stoats. But yeah, it's like everyone's playing stoats, and you're like, oh, this is so cute and so charming, and so like we're stoats in the forest, like we're living our Red Riding Hood dreams, and that's like we're not living our Red Riding Hood dreams. We're in like the stoat apocalypse, yeah. And it was so well done. Yeah. And so like I would the horror side of it is something like I would love to pick her brain about. Okay. And like how the fuck she convinced the team to like make some of those maps and models and stuff. And if you've seen it, you know what I'm talking about. So it's like crazy shit.
All right. I'm actually going to jump us to a break because I love this conversation. We're having a good time and I don't want to end it just yet. So I'm going to jump us to a break and we'll be right back. Okay. I forgot where we left off.
Something nonsensical.
Yeah, some nonsense. We got off track. Anyways.
Abria, I think, and
yes, the
like,
guest you'd love to have on.
yeah, what we would talk to Abria about.
So, when you are creating your content, is there like, do you look towards like trends or developments in the community that you're trying to like catch the wave on, or do you just like, this is our plan for the year and this is what we're gonna do?
I'm gonna be honest right now because this feels like a safe space and probably make us look bad because as a Ollie's education background is in marketing and I've worked in marketing for like almost 5 years now. At currently we don't really plan like that.
Yeah. We
kind of just ride the wave and like truly when there are episodes where it's just me and Ollie, like sometimes like we'll have an idea and like we have a private server that like we all chat it and stuff, like Ollie, myself, and our editor Kay, and sometimes like we'll add ideas in there and like we have different things, but like a lot of those we've already done, and so there's a non-zero chance if you're watching an episode and it's just Ollie and I that we decided what we were going to talk about like 30 seconds
right before we hit record.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
Because I was like, what the fuck are we talking about today? And I was like, oh, let's find something. And the whole time I've just like been on AI and I've been like, topics about D&D. Like, more, please. We've done all these. Because like it can be hard to like continue to come up with stuff because you don't want to say things like other people have said, or there are certain things like I would love to. We didn't get it done last year, but I would love to this year do like a little series set of episodes on like accessibility in D&D. Because it's like I'm a chronically ill girly and kind of have some like dynamic disability things going on of like sometimes I'm super fine and sometimes I'm super not, and I'm like definitely disabled. So along with like we have a ton of like most of our friends have like ADHD or like some kind of mental health thing going on where it's like how do you make the space in general and like your personal tables like more accessible? Like what are tools you can do? What are like around like if people are chronically ill and like they're constantly stressed about like having to cancel, like how do you create a game culture where people feel safe to like be honest about how they're feeling and not like they're gonna get like judged or kind of shunned for that. And or like we've done a few episodes that touched on like race and like diverse casting and all of that, and like with those we really like to have other people come on and talk about that stuff so it's not just Ollie and I, because sometimes it's like, oh, like I may fit the identity of like somebody that's chronically ill or like deals with the disability spectrum. You know, Ollie's a bi-Latin woman, so like she fills those identities. Like, but we don't want to be an echo chamber. Yeah. Or it's just our own thoughts bouncing around. So it's sometimes tough with like those bigger discussions. Like we really want to have people come in and like talk with us on that and have a more, cause even just like one more person, it's amazing what that can do if they have like that niche perspective that you need. So truly like we came, like it sucks that we didn't get to go to PAX last year, because to be perfectly honest, like we were riding the PAX high for like most of 2024. Most of our content, like until we got to like the last like quarter and a half of the year, we had just been going through everybody we met at PAX. Like things where we're like, you're gonna be a guest and you're gonna be a guest and you're gonna be a guest, and it was so great. It was the best thing. And then like we were meeting people through other people and like meeting people online, and it was the best. Like it's just those in-person moments are like so great for being able to connect and
invaluable.
Like so we got to figure something out this year. I think like I think Ollie would love this as well. I feel pretty comfortable speaking for her on this, like to be a little more strategic with it. But then some things, like we've done episodes where we like say like, hey, you don't have to just play D&D. There's lots of other cool systems. And like we've done an episode where we talked about like the new D&D system, but also like Ollie and I are not that much of like mechanic heads
Yeah.
where we're gonna dig in to just the nitty gritty of that. Like, I think we just like texted someone we knew and we were like, hey, please give us like the quick, mildly autistic rundown of what the new system is. And we're like, he did. I'm like, fantastic. We're rolling with that. Because like, we like the mechanics and we know the mechanics, but like, that's not why we're here.
Yeah.
So we're not the best voice to talk on that, right? And it's like, there's only so many times we can say like, hey, AI art is shit and you shouldn't use it. And, you know, you can play other, like D&D's great, but you can also play other games. So it's hard, and maybe I need to be more plugged in with like industry trends and stuff. Like it can sometimes seem hard to not, to like do that and not just keep saying the same thing.
Yeah.
How do y'all approach that? Can I turn the interview
what?
around a little bit? As far as like, yeah, like do you use like kind of market trends in your planning, and or like how big of a role does that play in what you do, or do you feel like you have your own goals that you set of the year?
Yeah, we kind of, so the way we run things is we have our 2 long-running D&D shows, which basically aren't affected by trends at all. Those are those long form stories. Then on Goodberry, we tend to do like, it's always an indie game, so it's either something we have or something kind of fits the season. Like we'll do a horror game around Halloween. We did the Christmas game for Christmas. So it's a little themed with that, but again, it's not really following a trend. The interviews, I will let my guests pick the date. So sometimes like with when I had Janelle on last week, she would pick that date to be around when she was running her her sponsored streams for Festive 3. But I usually let my guests kind of determine that. We're not following a trend per se, but we just, I guess, our themed is probably the best way.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. That makes sense. Yeah. I don't know, and like it's maybe one of those things where I think we tried to do, like when Ollie and I were first doing table talk stuff, we tried to like be a little more planned out with it. Like we thought, we're like, oh, like what an episode breakdown could be, and we're like, we have like an intro, and then we have like an intro segment, we have like segments, and we do like this, that, and the other thing, and that gets thrown out the window immediately, right? Yeah. But like that's also the joy of the show, I think, too, is like what people have liked about it is they're like, oh, it feels like you're just hanging out in like a coffee shop. It's like, well, yeah, that does kind of come because we sort of play it by ear a little bit. Like I would like to do kind of more topical stuff too, where it's like, yeah, we did like a year-end wrap up for like 2023 and stuff, and that was cool. And we've done like some horror episodes, same around Halloween and stuff. But yeah, I don't know. Like,
it's tough, especially when you're in the spaces we are. Like, I'm not trying to be disrespectful, but like we're in this like low middle space where like we're out there. Like people know us.
Like we're here. Like people listen, but we're not like Critical Role.
Right. We're not Critical Role. We're not like millions of views. So it's hard to do like those like planned out things where you're getting everyone wants to be on the show and you're getting booked out way in advance. You can set those things. It's so you're flying more by the seat of your pants, trying to like, all right, what can I fit in this week? What can I do this week?
Which is like interesting to think about, because it's like, is it more because they like fully as people get to like that mecca popularity level where they really are as much of like a household name as anyone can be in like a fairly niche field already,
in a very niche space.
But like more people know who like Critical Role is than they would,
New Age Geeks,
a random or us, like fully. And like when people know who we are, I'm still shocked. I'm like, what do you mean? We're just like 2 bitches in raccoon bodies in a trench coat. Like, what do you mean you know who we are? That's so strange to be perceived. Like, it's wonderful, but it's so strange.
Yeah.
Where the fuck was I going? Are we at that part of the night, or my brain is just gonna be like maybe.
We were talking about scheduling your year and like scheduling topics and following the trends, etc.
I got it. Thank you. That was helpful. it's an interesting like chicken and egg debate, I think, because it's like, does that come because you have so much going on? And it's like, if you're Critical Role and you're like, this is our production, this is everything, we have to plan it out, because if we don't plan it out, it'll be mayhem and chaos. Or is it like, you do the planning and then that gives you more structure? Like where that shift is, like I don't have an answer, but it's interesting. Like at what point does it become like, oh, we want to have more direction in our content, so we put in a little bit more strategy.
Mm-hmm. I think I
definitely
think you're right. I think it's a level of like you getting to a place where you can tell your guests when you need them, as opposed to your guests telling you when they're available.
Yes. Yeah, I think that's accurate. Yeah. Because like if Brandon Mulligan calls you and is like,
you're making space for this.
You're like, I'm there.
Yeah.
You're like, crazy how I'm already under an underpass in LA. Like crazy.
Who'd have thought?
Crazy. Like that's my shadow on the outside of the dome. I'm also here in the shipping container at 4 a.m. or wherever the fuck they film. Yeah. Whereas like, same, I'm sure it's the same for you, and it is with our scheduling too, of like, we very much like work on people's schedule. Like it's not that deep, like needs to get rescheduled. It's not a big deal, because like we don't have 18 other production steps, right, that are tied up in things getting done. So yeah, it's such an interesting thing. Like I saw something on Threads, I can't remember who posted it, so apologies for that, but like we're talking about, I think there was like a conversation around, I don't know that it wasn't even posted, like we know. I think it may have just been like somebody who like goes to cons and like does stuff in cons. But the discussion basically amounted to like, should cosplayers that like host events get paid by the convention or not? And like people were going back and forth on that. But it's like somebody else had a point that I thought was interesting. It did apply to us, because it was like, yeah, like people assume because they know you, they'd be like, oh, you're like famous, right? And it's like, no, I'm a little guy. I'm just a little guy on the internet. I'm just a little baby. And it's also funny because like you will meet, like when we met like you and people who like at PAX who were so much more known than we are, and you were also like, I'm just a little guy. I'm just here at the Marriott bar. But you were comparatively, right? Like it's so strange. You were though. And it's like somebody came, but to us you were. Like somebody came up to us at PAX and you're like, we know who you are, and both all I know were like, what do you mean? How did they find that? It's that point where it's like, oh no, like I guess we are on the internet. It is conceivable that someone might like recognize us in a space that is like also very centered on the thing that we do. Like that's not outlandish to think about. But it was such an odd moment, because I'm like, people don't come up to me and be like, I know you from Actors on Actors, or like whatever the hell, you know.
See, I've gone to like 4 or 5 cons now, and I've never had that moment. I've never had someone come up to me.
Maybe when we met you at PAX, you just seemed like you really had it together.
I wear a good mask. I'll give you that.
Same.
I have that mask
like
on.
you just really seemed like you like had it going on, and like you knew a lot of people, and like it also maybe that like social anxiety projection of like, everyone knows everyone else and I am the only outlier here, and like everyone's friends except me. I
felt the exact same way about you when I met you guys.
That's ludicrous, my dude. We have been doing this for 6 months. What do you mean?
I did it a year before. Like I didn't do it for a long time.
No, that's fair. That's fair. That's fair.
Yeah.
It's so like endlessly fascinating and funny to me as like a psychology nerd, like how that works.
Yeah.
Where it's like how you perceive yourself versus how other people perceive you. It's like, it's so interesting.
All right. What else do we want to ask? What else do I know about you? This is amazing.
What else do you want to know about me? I'm a pretty open book. You can ask whatever.
Okay. How do you deal with like do you feel like you get a lot of mental stress from
this, or just from life?
From this, but I mean, listen, I know we all are fucking riding that crazy train.
Me, I'm a pretty open book. Do you have mental stress? I mean, no.
Not at all.
From this,
Yeah, what? Because we just kind of talked on it, like the imposter syndrome, the
mhm.
social dynamics. How do you deal with it, and like what? How do you? I guess what's it feel like being in this space and trying to like navigate through these things?
I think like my answer is two parts. 'Cause it's
Yeah,
like there's when we're in like a space like a PAX, whatever.
yeah,
Like the one time we went to PAX, like for me personally, I had never been to a convention before either, so
right.
I had no idea what to expect. And like again, I am an anxious person. Like I get crowd anxiety. I get like overstimulated. So for me personally, like Ale is like we very much balance each other out in our friendship, and so she's a very good like source of security for
Yeah,
me because like she's very extroverted. I'm probably like an introverted or like an extroverted introvert
yeah,
more. Like I need both, but I lean more introverted.
yeah.
Whereas
That's usually
Ollie
how I describe myself as well.
Ollie's definitely more
Yeah,
extroverted. Like if she's around people, she's like, I'll sleep when I'm dead. And then the second she's in a room, she's just conked. Like textbook extrovert as well. Um, but it's like she's great because like if I'm having a moment where like I can't start a conversation or like so like she can kind of step in and do that. And then like I can also do that. Like I did like Russia sorority in college and like I networked. So I was like I can do it, but like it's effortful for me. It takes energy.
yeah,
And like I have to psych myself up of like, all right, we're going to network and we're gonna do the network and do the meet people and the like make a good impression hopefully. And I mean yeah, there's things where it's like yeah, if you're like at a bar and it's that's easier
yeah,
obviously because everyone's a little relaxed and you get a little liquid courage and everything's easier when that edge is taken off. But like when you're not and like you're meeting people you're like I know you from the internet and even still sometimes with like at the Marriott bar I was like that's someone I've watched for 2 years that's weird to see.
no
um
pressure.
and it's, yeah sometimes you just keep on walking and it's like hey we'll get them next time chief.
Yeah,
Like every time doesn't have to be a strikeout. um but yeah like Ale is much more comfortable with just going up and like cold opening. She
yeah,
also like had worked in sales for years, so it's like she can do that in a way where I'm like more of a I work remotely from home and I do writing for marketing. So like I like to be in my little cozy cave and making my content and sit it out from there. I'm not the person who's like doing the selling,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
So that is her strength and we balance each other out very well there. Um for like general like the process of like continually making content and like staying a fresh person in the space, I think I fluctuate like with everything and like with my mental health in general with toward my normal day job and everything
right.
where you have moments where you feel like you're doing really well and you're like you get come off a really good episode or something you're like that's great and you're like we're a part of the community and then you have times where yeah, just the imposter syndrome takes over, and you're like, have we just been saying the same thing for the last 4 episodes? And like,
Yeah,
should we even be doing this? Does this have legs to go for like 2 years, 5 years, much less 10 years? Like, and you just kind of thought spiral.
yeah,
And in those moments, I try to just pull myself out of that thought spiral because it's often not productive. And frankly, it doesn't matter if
yeah,
something has legs to go 2, 5, or 10 years. You will figure that out when you figure it out,
right.
and you're allowed to make choices and change things when you need to.
Yeah.
And there's 1,000,001 off ramps at any opportunity, and you don't have to make like a blood oath to your microphone to keep recording just because you
Wait,
own
we
one.
don't?
You
What have you lied to me?
get a new microphone.
Fucking
Because like
Alganos.
I mean, yeah, like I'm a smartass, but it's like that is how it feels where you're like, I've done a thing. I've like put myself out there to the extent like yeah, of course we're not celebrities, but it's like we are out there. People have perceived things that we've said and done and been in. And it's like, oh, there's now an expectation that comes with that.
Right.
And it's like, yes, but that doesn't have to be a bad thing. It's easy to like dwell on that and be like, people are expecting things of me. That means I can fail. And it's like, yeah, it also just means that like people like your stuff.
Yeah.
And you can just kind of keep fucking around and doing it and it'll probably be fine. And so like I really violently swing between those two.
Yeah.
And go to therapy every week to work on the process of not doing that.
Therapy's super helpful.
It's great. It's great. Hell of a drug. Yeah, it's an ongoing process. Like I feel like it'll be interesting. I'm really excited for the next con we're able to go to, because we know a lot of people. Like, it'll be really nice to like turn up at an event, and I feel like there's a strong chance we'll see at least like one or two friendly faces.
Yeah.
Right? Which is like so great. It was like, fuck, I know someone, thank God. But there is also, I know for me personally, even despite myself, like sometimes social anxiety of like, if I am somewhere where I don't know anyone and like I don't have my like comfort companion person that can carry me, you truly have that moment where you have to sit with yourself and you're like, all right, we must sink or swim by our own abilities. So we gotta get out here.
This is it, boys.
And we gotta work that floor like we have rent due, and this is how we're paying it. And like I can do that when I have to. It's like, does it take a lot of energy? Yeah. Am I stressed the whole time? Yeah, but it's also kind of fun.
Yeah.
So it's like I try to like do a bit of both, where it's like I put myself out there and also let myself have my safe place as well.
All right. Well, we're getting towards the end here, so I'm gonna kind of shift this over to our last couple questions. Okay.
Yeah.
Has there been a pivotal moment or like turning point in your career that has kind of shaped the way you approach content creation, or has it been like you found this steady train that you've just kind of ridden all along?
For me, it was absolutely PAX. Like the 2023 PAX, because we started in July of 2023, which like not to repeat everything I've already said like 6 times. But, like, we've been going for about 6 months. We went on a whim. Like, Johnny was one of our first guests, and like he's like, yeah, like I'm gonna go, you should go. And we're like, you know what, we should fucking go. So we went with no expectation at all. We're going as a just regular degular person here to experience. I'm just going to baby's first con, right? Like I have no idea what to expect. Always been to other cons, but just not to network. And like the amount of people we met and the amount of like connections we made, we really left feeling like we had made real friends and had so many good memories and had so many good connections and just like a wealth of resources. And like it really, like she and I both like looked at each other. We had like a day in Boston. We gave ourselves like a night in Boston at like a very nice hotel, because I love Boston, so we just took an Amtrak train up there and like had a nice dinner and stayed in a very nice hotel to reward ourselves for good networking. A con well done. And there was like definitely points at that dinner where we were just like looking at each other like, oh, this is real. Like we're doing this for real. It's not just like a thing that we're doing in the vacuum to like be kitschy and weird, like with ourselves, right? Like people knew who we were, and like more people know who we are now, and like we had people following us or like making connections online. It's like it really felt like that was the point where the momentum picked up.
Yeah.
And it became like a real actualized thing that we were doing.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that. At that post-con, like especially the first con where you're like, as a creator, it's a high that is you'll never get again. Like that you'll chase the dragon and you'll get hits of it, but it is that first post-con high is wild as a creator.
It was crazy. It was You're like, I need to go. You're like, I must go to a cave and only create.
Yeah.
For the foreseeable future.
Yeah, it really is just like there's nothing like that. All right, I'm gonna bring us to our last question. Question I ask all my amazing creators: what message or impact do you hope to leave through your content in the geek space?
Ooh. This is such a good question. You told me at the beginning of the episode, and I had like several ideas, and they all left my brain. For me, I think one of the big gifts that like TTRPGs have given me is like a place to discover things about myself and like to learn how to use my voice and flex that muscle. And so I think the thing that I hope we leave, or the impression I hope we leave on the space, is that it is good and important to take up space and to use your voice and to like find your authentic self and allow that to be a process, because it is a process to figure out who you actually are, especially if like you're a recovering people pleaser who's just been like a chameleon your whole life, like me. But that, yeah, like there are places where it is safe still to figure yourself out, and it is always good to take up space.
I love that. It's amazing.
Thank you.
I always love hearing creators like with their the message they always want to get out there. It's always so amazing. We're running really long, so we're just gonna skip right to our viewer questions. And if you have a question, get them in now because we're getting ready to wrap. This is from Praxis Games. Do you prefer systems that are setting agnostic, giving players and GMs genre at most and encouraging them to make their own settings, or systems with fleshed out settings that are deeply entwined with their mechanics?
Ooh, that's a good question. Can I get away with giving a marketing answer? No, a real person asked. Not that you're not a real person. I gave you a marketing answer, but you're the host. I lean toward, because I have such a penchant for getting a book and with my entire being like, this is my new baby, my new child. I shall live and die by you, my friend, my brother. And then I frisbee it across the room like 2 hours later and do what I want anyway. I love a good setting agnostic adventure that maybe gives you some hooks or ideas you could use, but lets you really craft your own world.
Yeah. Okay.
That's probably my preference.
All right. All right. I think that's the only question we've got. And like I said, we've run long today.
We ran her. We were pulling that handbrake at the last minute.
Go ahead and tell everyone where they can find you. Plug all the things. Tell everyone where they can see it. What projects you got coming up.
Absolutely. I'm Mariah. I have been here on this podcast, this lovely interview podcast. I'm one half of the Table Talk podcast, where we discuss all things TTRPG, as you have gathered by watching me ramble for the last hour and a half. You can find us anywhere podcasts are streamed. We have new episodes every Wednesday at 6 a.m. Central. We're starting back up. We took a break for the holidays. We're starting back up on January 8th. And then all of our socials, you can find us at TableTalkRPG.
Okay.
As far as other streams, we're on Boss Jellybean, aka Janelle's Fate Dark Eclipse stream, which we have an episode not this Sunday, but next Sunday of that. We're leading up to our finale, where we'll have to answer for our crimes. And we have some other stuff in the books, or hopeful planning, but they're secrets right now.
Okay. Amazing. Let's see. I'm Joe. You can find me everywhere at New Age Geeks or New Age Cosplay, or do cosplay stuff really poorly. We'll be back Monday with Forging Fates, and then you can see all the rest of our stuff on Instagram. That's all I got. We're about to break to an ad anyways, because the Twitches are telling me we need an ad break. So I've got nothing else. If you've got nothing else,
I'm good.
Remember,
this has been great. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for joining me. Remember, we love you, geeks. Good night.
Good night.